You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome, everyone, to our inaugural show on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. This is Adventures into Reality. And this has been a long time coming back to the station, and I want to thank everyone that's at the station. Nighthawk, our intrepid metal producer Steve in the background, and I want to introduce everyone to this new concept, this brand new show that's taking spirituality, healing, and advice at the highest levels of perception. And I want to bring in my intrepid co-host, Kathy Ma.
Hi, everyone. Exciting to be here. Very, very exciting.
It is. And last week, out of nowhere, when there was a Skype disaster, we popped in honestly on the same time slump as we are, and here we are 1 week later with our inaugural show.
I know. It's funny how things work.
Yes, you know, synchronicities are one of those things that you're going to be hearing a lot about on this show. A lot. Synchronicities affect everyone. There's no such things as coincidences out there.
So true, so true. There is none at all. You think it may be, but then at the same time, you're like, wait a minute, there's no way that could be.
Exactly. And then you get to the next level when coincidences stack up and stack up and stack up. And for bringing the show to Revolution Radio, it was the coincidences stacked up and stacked up and stacked up. I want to give special thanks out to all the people that encouraged me to come back on radio. I want to remind people, and for people that are brand new to Revolution Radio and any of the affiliates that are out there, that this is the largest listener-only supported station in the world. It is also the #1 listener-supported station in the world. So for those that like listener-supported work that is not corporate, that is not giant in general taking over of marketing, come to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com and drop by the site support button and give a donation. So if you'd like to get a hold of people here, we are going to be doing a call-in show, but it is not going to be for today. We are going to give an introduction, but generally this show is going to be a spiritual advice show, a teaching show, and it's going to be focusing around healing. And something that Kathy has done for a really long time also, which is been a professional psychic in Asia as well as a healer. So we're bringing our two skill sets together so that we can really, really help people with things to put inside your toolbox.
Yes. Add many bows for that little belt.
Exactly, and for those women, it's the brownie belt or the badge of honors for the Boy Scouts out there. So we want to make sure that people can begin to understand from the perspective of the healer. There's a certain thing that when it comes to self-healing and self-nurturing where you have to detach from the other world and attach into yourself.
That is so true. You know, and I think one of the things more and more today is we're working out that we can actually take some control over our own health, our own well-being, not always go to the doctor or the therapist or wherever it is, but to be more empowered within yourself, to know your body, know your mind, and find everyday tools around you, not necessarily expensive things either, that can absolutely aid you and empower you to take control and have that healthy lifestyle, that clear head, that joyous feeling that comes when you're feeling great.
Exactly. And when you get that joyous feeling when things are great, you get to do amazing things with it.
Oh, yes. Even just having more energy.
Yeah, I mean, so many people that come to me, they're just absolutely out of energy. And when they're out of energy, they can't make any creation. And when they're not able to create, they're stuck with no co-creation, meaning their dream world's just empty. It's not giving them back what they want.
Or they can't even get there because not only are they exhausted, then they're taking pharmaceuticals, which then pretty much stop you getting into your dream time.
Exactly. When you have to take some form of unnatural pharmacopoeia sleep aid, it is triggering the chemical response for you to go into sleep. There are some natural things that can put you to sleep, but you shouldn't be using them unless you really, really need to. And there are people that, cross over the certain line that their gut health is just not there. Their physical health is not there. They may be spiritually super healthy, and they just don't realize how toxic of a world they live in. And after a while, the attrition battle takes our dream world away.
Yeah, I mean, you just have no idea what's in your environment. When I first moved to America, I was just absolutely in awe of your chicken breasts.
The giantness of them.
I know. I'm like thinking, what kind of chickens do you grow in America? I mean, to have
elephant chickens.
That big, they must be ginormous. It never occurred to me that they were pumping stuff in it, even if it was just water that they were pumping in. But, all the additives and this and that makes them grow. I mean, I'm amazed. I mean, it does taste good, I'll give them that. But, wow. Just going to the supermarket alone, it's like a smorgasbord of additives. Who knows what it is that you're putting into your body.
And you know that the labeling on it isn't accurate either.
No, I mean, sometimes I think you need a degree to read some of that as well. I mean, I took a dictionary with me once, but, those words were not in it.
Exactly. They were not in it. No. So why don't you give people a quick introduction of who you are and what brought you to America?
Okay. Well, I'm Kathy. I've been doing readings and probably for, I guess, 30 years, something like that. I mean, I'm probably nearing 30 years. I've done all around the world, mainly in Asia, Hong Kong, but everywhere else as well. Not so much in the States before when I was younger, but now more so. I'm originally from Australia, so that was very interesting moving to Hong Kong. I picked up doing this kind of thing purely by accident. I didn't really have a family background with this type of, we'll call it ability, skill, art, whatever you like to call it. So it took me longer to understand what I see and what I know is not normal. I used to think it was a thought process. If you were having a conversation and you said blah, 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 and I'd go, oh, why? Because blah, blah, blah. And it was just like a normal dialogue. But it wasn't till I went to college that obviously something I said was like way off people's normal parameter of normal responses. And it was over a mutual friend's relationship. It was nothing big. And they said, how on earth would you come to that conclusion? So I was explaining, because blah, blah, blah. And then, when I see, da, 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 and they're like, what do you mean when you see? I said, well, when you see. And that's, well, their reaction to me showed me that is not what everyone sees. I realized,
I know that feeling well.
Yeah, so, oops, what did I say?
Oops, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, and then once I understood it, I could go back and see a lot throughout my life, but I just had not attributed an ability or a sixth sense or whatever you want to call it to then. Mm-hmm. So from that moment onwards, probably I sort of, I don't really want to say practice, but I kind of used that skill for a couple of years. And then later on, a few years later, I used it as a full-time thing, which was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life.
And you made it all the way up to being a psychic for the big business out there, because in Asia, no deal is signed without having the oversight.
Oh, yes. It certainly is a great place to do business readings over there. People use us in all sorts of ways, whether we come in on business meetings and we're just looking at deals and looking for pitfalls. Sometimes you go in on meetings and, especially in big meetings, your side might have 10 people, their side might have 10 people. You don't actually introduce everyone, so no one questions whether you're there or not or why you're there. Yeah. And then I would just pass notes or I would just listen, and then if there's anything really bad, I would just stop the meeting by, I need a glass of water or whatever it is. And then we would go back and re-look at the plan or whatever it was. So that was a pretty common thing.
And that was during negotiations at any level of the contracts?
Correct. Yeah. Usually we would do it not in a business meeting with the, our other side in the early days. I would just do that with my clients, and we'd get it all worked out, what is the good deal, what they should do, shouldn't do in terms of what they want out of the deal, and what pitfalls are coming up, where is there falsity and stuff like that. And then if there was big negotiations where a lot of stuff had to be decided on the moment, I would go in with them. That was not my ideal choice, because it's very difficult to give secret signs to someone while you're in a big meeting. Sometimes they don't look at you, and you're not close enough to kick them, so you're sort of rolling your pen around.
Trying to get them to notice.
Work.
And you even made it up to the Asian version of Time magazine, correct?
Yes, well, when Hong Kong was taken back by China, Time magazine did a special issue, all about Hong Kong, of course, because a big handover. It was very exciting. So I was named as one of the 97 things to love about Hong Kong. I was Hong Kong's most corporate psychic. I was the only one, I'm sure. But it was a great honor. My dad thought it was fabulous.
And all these years later, here we are together, continuing the Adventures into Reality series. And for people out there, Natalie will be around. She is working on her equine material, and we give her all the great gratitude and for helping me out. And she's not disappeared. She is working on some material and going to be putting to her own stuff together. So we want to give special thanks to her and to Tanach and Adriana and Kathy that have come together during this time where we're going to be putting together a really, really huge series that's going to really help people. And that's what this show is about. So now that you've got an introduction to Kathy, many of you already know me. I'm Andrew, the Galactic Historian. I've been on this radio station and dozens of others. So what we want to do today is have a conversation about letting go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read one that's about letting go. It's something that's an opening line. It's about the shaman's death. And from this, Kathy and I are going to make a conversation about this. All right, so just a second here. I call to my sacred medicine spread, that which aids me in understanding my infinite spirit. The healer's tools have been laid out in ceremonial fashion. I call to the four elements and bring their essence into my sacred healing space in equal co-creation with all sentient kind. I call to the ancestors of this medicine reading to bring communal balance with the words being manifested in the now. I call to the dreamers of the southern skies, our mediums, into the innocence of our 7 future generations. In this shamanic moment of no time now, I co-create this communal reading for all sentient kind living on earth now. The shaman's death is a lesson of the now. It speaks of life, death, and rebirth as a cyclical process of understanding. We who are in the now, with every breath, there is a life and a death. There is a rebirth of the self. Some form of cyclical shedding of the old self requires us to look at our habit patterns of life in the now. Many patterns lead us out of balance with our own needs. Often we confuse our needs with desires. This is the nature of the shaman's death, to see how habitual habit patterns create shells we must learn to discard in this ever-evolving dance of spirit life, balanced with real life. At times we take back old shells we discarded long ago, just to feel safe and secure. This is the other teaching of the shaman's death. With the new requires new creation, so the body is involved with the whole process of self-evolution. The body is what houses the skills and all habit patterns we use to function within this holographic reality, blending into our dreaming experience of belief. The temporal people of the now are the only ones who have this experience of shedding and creating cyclically with Mother Nature. We, the people of now, have forgotten the detailed ways of our ancestors. So many of us have been brought up on the bosom of mass media. We do not know the truth of our bare feet touching the ground without the chatter of world entertainment within earshot. The songs of the birds in the jungles, the chorus of crickets, or the flocks of geese speaking their sacred neutral words as they head in seasonal directions. How do we teach our people to let go of the tit that milks their knowingness from the very breath they breathe? We do this by creating a legacy of truth for our 7 future generation ancestors so they can feel it, touch it, and know it is future real now. To follow the sacred path of living the shaman's death daily is the greatest discipline one can teach themselves during these great times of generational change. Look deep into the way of you live your life and the way you can make something sacred living in your own belief system. What can you do each day to let go of fear, envy, jealousy, or the 3 nags of shame, blame, and guilt? See how we torture ourselves with perceived debt created by others. See how you can come into cyclical process of letting go with the best of intentions so that all that comes back to you is perfect synchronicities with great mystery. I call to the Great Spirit who lives within the great mystery, you who is the source of all sources. I call to you in this sacred moment of infinite reflection of who I am and what I am doing in this temporal now. I call to your wisdom to see the humbleness of my position within my own soul family interaction, so I may nurture all of my past and future generations with the wisdom in living in the now. The red coral of the great oceans of Earth Mother has held sacred by the indigenous peoples of all Earth realms since the dawn of conceptual time. Red coral has been used to gauge all forms of time through the process of long-term nurturing and the lessons learned through allowing time to not affect the nature of our own nourishing expression. To nurture oneself is the greatest gift we can return to Earth Mother at this moment in time. By allowing healing to be a process and not an event, we come to the greatest wisdom of why red coral is the Earth Mother's blood teacher. Red coral is of earth blood. It is the link to her sacred heartbeat we all hear deep inside the womb time, long before we go through the forgetting of the birth canal. Red coral reminds us of the infinite nurturing in the placenta of the mother's womb. It also teaches us when we leave the womb experience, a new birth, a new sacred placenta of void energy encompasses us on our life walk. This new placenta is what we make sacred through the learning of what is in our DNA and our very blood that procreates our version of life in this world. Red coral comes from the great water nurseries of life, the place the whales, dolphins, and tunas go to spawn the 7 future generations. We all share red blood on Earth. It is the gift she gave us so union and communion can exist on all levels of creating within Earth realm. Red coral is Earth's water nursery, represents the very essence of nurturing womb time. We, the generation of the now, time, bear the responsibility of acting in the now. The ancestors of the past gave us our traditions, cultures, and esoteric practices for us to learn, for the future to exist in the now. We must learn how to live in balance with the ancestors of the lands we live on. Be it in concrete jungle, urban sprawl, or ancient forests, we are the ones who act in the now. For the future to exist, we must nurture it with the passion spark. Each person will have an individual journey back into the natural way of life. Our former experience will color our future experience, and we continue to co-create until we make clear separation of conscious application of the sacred art of our daily life walk. Now we come to the rites of passage we have all learned through living on Earth. At this moment, suspended in no time, I, as a sovereign being, choose to engage my natural rights as a sovereign-born being born on Earth Mother through the natural way of the womb as a sacred feminine. I calibrate all of my soul frequency to the natural way. By making that very choice, we have earned the rites of passage into the next level of knowingness and wisdom link with the infinite soul. Each being of Earth seeks their own way to connect with the infinite being they are. The process always comes to an understanding of scale and size in which the other self works at. We walk the rites of passage, we finish the old. We do not fall back onto the old ways of self-deception, self-perversion of sacred living. By accomplishing the rites of passage, you must upkeep your continuous co-creation with Earth Mother's realms. It is your sovereign duty. We do this by our elemental connection to all that is, the four-legged, the winged ones, the scaled, the soft-shelled, the birds, the bees, the ducks, and the dinosaur. All have a mystery and a part of Great Mystery's plan.
Wow, powerful stuff.
Yeah. That is to set off about letting go. So many people that come to see you and me are stuck in the past.
So true. So true. It is so difficult to let go. I mean, you think it's easy, but it's not.
You know, one of the things that I commonly, is people that have, relationships and breaking up. And one of the things that you and I wanted to feature is relationship advice for even those that haven't been, in a long time. In future shows, we're going to be opening up calls for that. So let's talk about, helping people let go of a relationship that just their heart isn't able to let go of yet. So many people have that broken love from a young age that they come into their 30s and 40s and it's still in their heart.
Yes, it's one of those things that's really very, very, very difficult to get rid of. What your heart knows and what your head knows are completely two different things. And how to get them to see eye to eye, especially on the letting go era. I mean, that revocation you just spoke of, can you use that? I mean, would it be handy for the average Joe to say that out loud every day if they're having trouble letting go?
Absolutely. And that was the whole purpose of why I wrote it. The whole thing was to make a conscious application of the sacred. The first paragraph puts you into the frequency. The healer's tools are laid out. It is about self-healing and self-nourishing. When you detach from the attached world, you allow some form of sacred energy to come forward through you. So reading those things, extremely beneficial. Creating more and more of it is even better for you. What can you let go? Give us specifics.
So if you're in a situation where you've just broken up with your longtime partner, whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. Right. And you just can't let go. You're waking up, you're depressed, you're crying, etc. Would I say that like once a day when I get up, or do I say in the morning and at night or throughout the day? I mean, what would you recommend,
for a fresh breakup that's, within the first month and a half, and you've come to the realization that you can never go back to the old ways. Whatever has happened. That is where you have to find a moment where you have enough energy to read it. And what I would advise is people use their cell phone and record themselves reading it once a week, and spend the rest of the week when you're on your way to or from work playing it on your phone so you can hear the past person who's still trying to let go. Because there will be points where you will get super emotional simply because you've made something sacred and you're identifying that it's time for me to see my cyclical process. Maybe there was a habit pattern I did that drove the other person away, or it was the other person's habit pattern that drove you away from them.
Listen, Evolution Radio, Freedom Slips.
We are on the break, and we'll be back in 3 minutes, everyone.
Now we return you to your host.
And welcome back, everyone. We are going to be continuing our conversation here, and I want to give special shout-out thanks to Debbie, who has been so helpful with us, and Debbie has been on quite a few shows of us, and she will be on in the future here talking about past life regressions. So, Kathy, what I read there is called a stream read and a contract revocation. It's put it all in one. It takes this process, what is called invoking and evoking, and it brings it to the present person of the now.
Oh, wow. So how would I get hold of that if I want to do it myself? So
if they'd like to, you can go to Andrew Bartz, it's AndrewBartzis.KAGABI.com. And that will sign you up for the email list, and that will give you all of the contract revocations just for the email list. So everything that you've heard me read, including all of the other contract revocations, will be available. And those are one of the common tool sets you'll be hearing me and Kathy talk about. It's using that out loud voice in a way to begin to see your cyclical patterns as well as other patterns from the unseen world. And that's something you and I are very aware of, how the unseen subtly redirects people into bad choices.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's happened to everyone. I mean,
Right.
No one's immune to that.
No one is immune to it.
But it's interesting, that one, how you talked a lot about the red coral and then the red earth. I mean, is that the purpose also to help you do the grounding?
Yeah, to get you to ground, it's to think of something else. Red coral is something that is very rare when it grows. Most coral is white. When it begins to grow red, there are certain properties amongst it that makes it as hard as stone, and it's why it's a highly sought-after stone. It connects you to the pure, growing frequency of Earth, and it's that nourishing, self-healing energy. So when we connect to the great red coral energies, we are connecting to the bigger scale of nature that we live in.
Wow, I didn't realize that. So what is the passion spark?
That is that taste for life when you have a drive to go out and get faux noodle soup and nothing's going to stop you.
Yes, I know that passion. I have a passion spark.
Or you have that passion spark to be a writer, an artist, or anything else that you can taste it on the tip of your tongue.
Wow. I'm already getting excited just thinking about my passion spark.
And for a lot of times when people have relationships, they lose that passion spark because they've been sharing a spark with someone else for so long.
Yeah. Well, it becomes a fuse together, which really no longer has that same passionate energy about it, isn't it? It's just a co-joining.
Yeah, a co-joining. And then we run into those, common English words, codependent and independent relationships. And that's another form of understanding how you're sharing the passion spark.
If you're in a situation where you do have the serious relationship breakup and, you were the one who's doing the breaking up, more to the point. So for you, the letting go is relatively, let's say, more easy than for the recipient.
No.
Could you, and you can see that the recipient is having a lot of trouble letting go, whether it's, a million phone calls, messages, banging on your door, whatever it is. Could you read this revocation to aid them to let go, or is that something they have to do for themselves?
It depends on the level of projecting energies. Because there are times in the freshness of the breakup, the person, male or female, doesn't matter. They're missing your energy so much that they're reaching into your energy field. So when you read it, it is more for you to indicate to the unseen forces that the person unknowingly is sending at you that, no, I am going through a cyclical letting go. And if there's true love without strings attached, this will continue in a new evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So you are helping them.
Yeah.
You're just not, it's the different perspective of help.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it is, what is the word? Very disempowering when you're in that situation where the other party won't let go.
Exactly. And they won't let go, or then they begin to obsess.
Yes, and then they pull on the old heartstrings, the guilt is coming out, although you shouldn't have that. But you end up falling into that trap, isn't it?
Exactly. And then after a while, those become some of the most perverted relationships you have, where you try to creep the friendship, but one person knows that one wrong word and the other person will blow up because they're not ready to let go.
Mm. Oh, yeah. I've seen that happen before.
Oh yes, oh yes, and this is where I want to introduce the next revocation, and this one is called removal of troll energy. So many people out there are in social media and they get trolled, or they get people putting stuff on their timeline is just drama. And for this one is for people that are beginning to deal with that energy on the highest layers. All right, so removal of troll energy. I, in the ever-present moment of now, acknowledge the presence of another I am presence in polarity, trying to consciously entangle with me with their karma, drama, or spiritual issues. I am here to create a proper spiritual cord of equity to make a clear separation of densities. I call upon the laws of universal action and reaction to sever all bonds of energetic connection between this I am presence and all other I am presences, forcing this presence into dramatic polarity within the 3D matrix network of unsovereignty. I make this statement to all ancestors in union and communion with the common moral code of equality for all. I can no longer bear the weight of dense false light energy set my way via false light influenced personalities or individuals who have lost their way of knowingness. I summon all DNA lineage ancestors to hold space in this spiritual court of equity. With every action, just one second. I summon all DNA lineage ancestors to hold space for this continued I am action, even while I sleep or visit other realms, including this matrix realm. I call to the ancestors to create a clear separation of densities within my 1 degree of separation of this I am, so I may transverse the multiverse without the forced drama of others who are unable to heal themselves with the information at hand existing in the 3D matrix world. I cannot bear the weight of healing an entire species, one broken, angry person at a time. There must be a common moral code we can all use. Do no harm to any sentient kind. Until this common moral code is universal amongst our people, I make these I am statements to my ancestors in communion and unity with unity conscious expansion and evolution. Those who have targeted me in this time stream and matrix, I now put you on permanent spiritual notice. If your energy violates my energy or I am presence in this matrix or any other matrix network, you will be placed in a spiritual court of equity outside of this universe, so you may find remedy and resolve without my signature frequency as a teacher for your DNA lineage ever again. I am putting out all matrix personalities on notice of spiritual court of equity of summons of truth. Bring your petty lies and dictatorial comments to the ancestors. They will have infinite time to hear your words and exchange energy while you pontificate on false light philosophy. Let the ancestors teach you at the core of your being what true sovereignty is. I can no longer entangle with you in any way, shape, or form until you have seen, accepted, and integrated the common moral code of unity consciousness in the global dream time. I call to all soul shards of myself and others who have been forcefully entangled consciousness energy via CERN. We now separate all Akashic record frequencies and false light mainframes. We dismantle all matrix components and all etheric connections to create any other form. We are here in this moment of now, and in this unified self message of separation of densities, I create my own equations of life from my own source connection to great mystery. From this point forth, I no longer observe, entangle, or exchange energy with a person that no longer does not see, do no harm to any sentient kind. Your words mean everything. Be aware of them.
Wow, I could feel that. That was very strong.
I did that because I've run across so many people that have come to me in private sessions that have had their whole world turned upside down by a single Facebook post by a former loved one.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, especially in today's age of social media. I mean, bullying has taken on new meaning and new heights in meanness and nastiness because of that.
Yeah. To the point where you have people that are renting billboards calling their husbands or wife cheaters. That actually happened in Los Angeles. A wife found some text messages on a man's phone and used his credit card to pay $80,000 for a billboard that he drives past every day that 8 million people a day see.
That's insane. What did it say?
I caught you, you cheater, and I'm using your credit card to pay for this billboard.
Oh, my goodness.
And it had a Twitter link, too.
Of course it did. Oh, my goodness. That really takes it to a whole new level, doesn't it?
That's right. It takes it to a whole new level. And that's why I came up with that one and chose to read it in conjunction with the other one of letting go. Because when you're dealing with people that are trolling you on the internet or sending you bad emails or bad texts and they just can't let go, or they're constantly trying to manipulate you, that is an up forward I am action that says, I do not have to deal with your issues. You cannot force them upon me.
Yeah. And it's very empowering. I mean, that would be ideal for school bullying, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be very if children could understand that level of words. It was written for a much more practice, authentic person that's gone through their layers. I mean, anyone can read it and begin to understand it. It's just the order of words is also based on your level of experience.
Yeah, I suppose that is very true as well. I mean, even when you refer to the clear separation of densities, I mean, for us, I guess it's easy to understand, but if you're very young, you may not understand that.
Right. And what is the separation of densities? It is a clear choice that I am making part of my life sacred. And you cannot bring your unsacred, polluted energy into my time of sacred space. That's what separation of densities means. It means that you're holding your boundaries. And when you are giving yourself that meditation moment, you're giving yourself those sacred energies, that whatever else is trying to draw you out of it, be it a text message from someone you had that you haven't answered back to, or a Facebook post, or something that keeps drawing your mind out of it, meaning your mind is entangled with the energy of that. And when we make conscious application of the sacred, the separation of densities is the law of the universe, giving you reaction and reaction and reaction.
That makes very, very good sense.
So when we know what action and reaction is, we can make actionary statements of the self that use the laws of spirit to our benefit.
When you say it, it just seems so logical. I don't understand why I didn't think of it before.
One of my special skills in life.
Yes, you are very smart.
Well, thank you.
Not just a pretty face.
So with this, the shaman's death was the first part of the conversation. And when we take that is letting go of the old person, the old shell, so a new shell can come forward. Oftentimes in relationships where people have a breakup, the old shell of that old person that was always there, they need to remake a new one. And that's something else both you and I see frequently. People that are they're at the soft shell crab and they're trying to make a whole new individual I am shell.
Yes, that's very true. I mean, you put it very, very well. I usually describe it to people as, in this situation, it's like a screw and a nut, what do you call it? A nut and a bolt, is it?
Yeah.
And when you change, especially when you separate, the nut and the bolt no longer fit the same because one has shifted position and it never will quite fit the same again. It's a question of whether or not the other can adapt to that new change and that new shift, and whether or not that they can fit again.
Exactly, if they can fit again. And then after a while, sometimes you realize you're a square peg in a round hole and you have to make a whole new level of yourself. And that's where people come to the new forms of spirituality, where they have to begin to define what it is that they want. They're leaving an old relationship that had an old view, and they want something that's brand new in their own. What are some of your suggestions for those people that are fresh and new, have just come out of the old thing and are really wanting to create something new?
Well, I would say the easiest way, well, I guess easiest is a good word, would be you have to do some form of cleansing for yourself and your energy before you can go anywhere else, because at that point you're still carrying the other person's energy with you, whether it's conscious or subconscious. So, I mean, something practical that you can do would be, I think we've talked about this before, take a good bath in Epsom salts. That way it helps you cleanse. Apart from other health benefits, it does help you cleanse your energy. You can use crystals for all sorts of different things. If it is a nasty breakup, possibly black tourmaline would be a good one to have around you, so that it will help you deflect any negative energy, negative vibes, whatever you want to call it. And it also, in a way, it psychologically helps you feel a bit better by having a barrier. I mean, it's not like a whole wall, but when you're in tune with crystals, you start to feel that energy, and you do feel an element of protection, which at that point in time is very good, because you're feeling vulnerable, because you're trying to close up all these connections that you had open with a love relationship before. Sorry, go on.
So when it comes to using crystals and stuff like that, that's a whole new level of investment. Oftentimes, people in relationships, if they might have shared crystals. So washing your crystals or the salt bath is a very, very good way of clearing out the old energies. Crystals are not just there to be imprinted on. They are there to be a form of sacred, neutral, non-speaking witness of who you are. And then after you build a new companionship with them, you'll be able to get new levels of energy and relationship with them.
Yes, definitely. Because like everything, they get tired, they get full. I mean, they're like humans in their own way. They want to help, but then they do need some little, what is the word? Support.
Yeah, support.
Yeah. What's a good word when they tap you on the shoulder? Yes, I do have a crystal frog, which actually it's a yellow jade frog. It's a Chinese frog, which helps you draw in certain things, specifically abundance. And I have to admit, I pat it every day. I mean, he sits near me facing the doorway like he's supposed to with his coin in his mouth. And I'll pat him and I will tell him, my affirmations for the day. I mean, they're pretty much the same every day, and ask him to help me with them and to bring this and that, and is he okay? So, the crystals do become like companions to you.
Exactly. Companions that you can share stuff and they are not judging you, no matter how in polarity you are. Yeah,
I totally agree. I mean, I think some people think I have rocks in my head, but, I feel
crystals. Good. You do. You got a crystal in your head.
I do. But, they haven't failed me yet. They've always, I mean, you can't really say, oh, please bring me $1 million. You can't be that specific, but you can ask for assistance in certain areas, and almost always they will provide.
Yeah, in synchronicity is the way they provide.
Oh, yeah. No use asking it for the Powerball numbers. Because they'll be like, huh?
They'll be like, Ribbit, what do you think I am? An oracle?
Exactly. Believe me, I've tried. It doesn't work.
So one of the other things that we were talking about in the cyclical, the shaman's death, is where we come to what's called the rites of passage, where the person knows they've gone from one level to the next level. They're no longer on the plateau. They're climbing the next level of self-exploration. And when it comes to relationships or growing something new in your life, we come to this process of the rites of passage. And I know you've seen it and I've seen it, where people just reach a point where they don't know if they should put another ounce of energy into it.
Yeah. You habitually feel obligated to do it, but you get to a certain point where you have to start wondering, is it worth it? And, it's a terrible place to be because there's a lot of guilt associated with it because you feel as if you're doing wrong by someone, when really it's very difficult to accept that maybe you're doing right by someone by doing something like that.
Yeah, by giving yourself that moment saying, I'm going to climb this little hill, and when I get to the top, I'm going to look back and realize it was just a little hill.
Exactly.
When we allow ourselves to actually call something a rites of passage, example for people that are going into a healing process, maybe they have cancer or some other form of sickness, a back injury, and they give themselves that long-term goal to give themselves self-healing and self-nurturing so they can go through the rites of passage of letting go of the dense energy that has created the atmosphere for a sickness within your spirit and body.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and especially stress that comes with any of these scenarios.
Exactly. Give yourself that internal rhythm and timing, and those goals can create new viewpoints and options. So the sacred space is respected. And in that sacred space, respected energy is where you can begin to thoroughly let go of some of the perverted attachments you may have. That keeps you weighted down from climbing that little hill.
It sounds like a very good place to be.
Exactly. When you make that conscious, active decision to say, I'm going to go through my own personal rites of passage, it's an understanding that there is no pass or fail in that.
When you refer to the spiritual court of equity, what do you mean by that?
That is where you have a concept that everything that is in nature, that is in unity, that is already imbalanced, that already understands the natural order of birth. Example, the birds, they have their own process separate of human beings. We're the only things that do what it is, mass extinction on the level that we do. We're disconnected. And when we connect into that process, we are allowing our natural birth to become a part of us. And the spiritual court of equity is all other sentient beings already in the concept of do no harm to any sentient kind with an active understanding of time. Spiritual court of equity is all of your ancestors in your lineage, past, present, and future, in a sacred neutral witness format, so your authentic self can say your authentic truth, and there is no justice or judgment in that witnessing of that. And the spiritual court of equity is your inherent right as a being born on this world to speak to your ancestors of the past and ancestors of the future. Because it is the beings of the now, their direct active statements as interacting with this realm of energy that includes the regular matrix world, seen and unseen. When you give directives to a spiritual court of equity, you're giving directives to the infinite ancestors to act as your guardians and boundary layers so that unseen and seen forces must go through a filter of your will before they can force energy upon you.
Sounds like a good place to turn up for and see everyone. I mean, when you go to a spiritual court of equity, does it give you an incredible sense of calm and support?
When you begin to practice it regularly and give it that authentic bravado behind it, it does. And that is why repeating the contract revocations is important. Even if it's just the prayer that opens the beginning, it is what makes a spiritual court of equity sacred. You're bringing in all of the prayer energy, all of the angelic beings, all of the two-legged, the four-legged, the winged, the creepy, the crawly, the mermaids, everything that you can think of, so that it, in its own neutral perspective of do no harm to any sentient kind, can hear your process of saying, I want to do no harm to any sentient kind, and therefore I am making these statements in this moment of now, knowing that a person in a future generation will stand upon my shoulders and maybe say a few more words.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. That's the beauty of your out loud, interactive voice. You can make a council of your own selves in spiritual courts of equity, so you can understand from your own perspective why you may have an attachment to a person you just don't want to let go.
Yeah, I guess also saying it out loud helps you clarify it in your head, because often when you have thoughts in your head, they're also muddled, but to actually have to take the effort to say it out loud does help you clear and sort your own thoughts out and feelings, I guess. But then there's all this other stuff that's going on that I wasn't aware of before either. So that's spiritual court of equity.
Yeah. When you give it its potential to you is given back to a millionfold in the form of perspective. All right, that is our break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes, everyone. Just hold on.
freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back, everyone, to Adventures in Reality on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We want to remind everyone that this is the largest listener-supported non-corporate station in the entire globe. So stop on by that site support button. And for those of you that are going to be interested in the replay, it will be up on the station's archives, which you can get for $5 a month. And also on my public YouTube channel, Galactic Historian on YouTube, you will find the replay for this. It should be up within about 12 hours. We're going to be getting back to our incredible conversation with Kathy about letting go and understanding how energies interact with us and that stop us from letting go.
Letting go. Such a difficult thing to do.
Yes, it is.
One thing I was thinking about was, what about, when you've got someone who's passed away? Is that
totally different form than a breakup. When you're mourning the energy of someone, you have to retreat into yourself and let both of your male and female sides express the mourning energy. So that healing even has the potential of coming into your knowingness. So a truth about the death can be revealed to yourself. That you are also a mortal being who may have to look at their mortality and the great loss that you feel from a loved one who's passed over the rainbow bridge, who has let down their white or blue robes. You must begin to acknowledge within yourself there is a cycle and a movement in yourself that says those friends that are here living at some point were also unliving. And they are here to help us, seen and unseen, to find our own unity within our own stuff.
I see. So it's not, even though in the English language we would call it both letting go, in actual fact, it's a mourning rather than a letting go in terms of a relationship to that person.
Correct. Some people have great celebrations to send the spirit into the other world. Each person's tradition is different, but allowing yourself to see the great memories that you've had with the person that has passed, vitally important. When my grandmother passed in May, and she had a long time Alzheimer's affecting of her, I remembered the good times, not all the bad times. I remembered the wonderful things I had growing up with her, and I was able to celebrate her life in my mourning.
That's a very good way to do it. I mean, for many Chinese, like especially Buddhists or Taoists, they have a several-day mourning for the person who has passed on, and they burn offerings for them in heaven. So you will find in the streets there's always people that are burning what do you call them, like paper. I think the word is effigies of like apartment blocks and cars and money and jewelry and even TVs, so that when their departed relative gets up to heaven, that they can have all this stuff up there. And that's a very good way that they employ to feel empowered to
cross over.
Part of them. Yeah, like it's not just they're gone from this reality, it's you can help them and assist them in another one, and they're still part of you in many ways, even though they're not here in the physical world. So I guess, all cultures have different things that they help with that sort of mourning.
In a more spiritual mechanic process, when you are giving the celebration of the passing and you are sharing those memories, you are connecting to that being who is going to be going through a life review. Oftentimes they get stuck in the corridor and they don't know what direction, and your love and celebrating energy gives them focus and drive and allows the natural light inside them to give them the access to the portal to the great beyond, to go and finish the death process so they can once begin being a no-time being in the astral world with your infinite love still emanating from the finite world. You are guiding them with your every tear. You are guiding them with every joyous, tearful thing that you have that comes up that says, thank you for your time with me.
Well, that really, I can feel that in my heart. It's very powerful words, but so true, so true.
When you seek in yourself to let go of mourning energy, you find the big questions of life. So many people have a tough time with mourning energy because they don't look about the limitedness of their own life. And when somebody you love greatly is gone, we don't see in ourselves that we are mortal. And so many people are stuck, keeping that person in their heart because they haven't looked at their own mortality.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy not to look at it because you just brush it, into the future. It will happen one day. And in your mind, that one day will never come. And
exactly, because you're still in time.
Yes. And when you have that point where you stop because there has been a passing, it makes you look at those big questions, and then, and you have to look at the big questions and the big issues, and then your own mortality, and whether or not you need to prepare, or, whatever it is that, depending on what age you are, whatever it is that you need to do. And you look at life so differently. Your outlook changes because you're no longer busy. You're like, wait, everything could be gone tomorrow, and then what have I done? Did I do what I needed to do? Irrelevant to what you may or may not have wanted to say to someone that you can't say anymore. It's more about you realize time is such a commodity, and you just have no idea how much time there is, and what do you want to do with the rest of your time.
Exactly. Time is a commodity that isn't traded on the open stock market. It is only experienced between people.
Yes, that's very true.
And when you choose to empower yourself with time to have an experience with another that leads into great forms of teaching and loving and procreation, and it comes to a moment where the other is facing their mortality, they may be sick, we come to this moment of what I call the field of plenty, where the infinite synchronicities of the universe are available to you so your love can continue in time. And this is when your ideas and needs manifest about self-expression and true purification of the heart, so there can be a created intent to release the sickness that is going to limit time with another loved one.
That makes so much sense, really, it does.
Our ability to respond and the self-sacrifice that is needed to go through the healing with your companion. That is so great. So many people that I run into, they have the person that is ill, and the person that's the caregiver is equally going through their own experience.
It is, isn't it? That's one of the sort of, I don't know what the word is, but it's an individual experience. The same event can happen to many, but how you experience it is so different to the others. And it's hard to comprehend that people cannot feel the same way that you are because you're experiencing it that one way. You expect everyone else to have the same bunch of emotions, but they never do.
Exactly, they never do.
Yeah, and honoring other people's experience and or lack of in your eyes, whatever it may be, is quite a challenge.
Yeah, it is quite a challenge. And that's where there becomes a separation for, let's say, people have been together for a long time in relationship and they've grown apart, but there's still love there.
Yes.
I experience it all the time where one member of the companions wants to be super spiritual and the other just wants to watch Fox News.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that a lot too.
And that's where you have to give them their space and still be loving with them without strings attached.
Yes, and to understand you can't compel people to feel the way that you feel or see things the way you see them.
Exactly.
Or search for the same spirituality that you do.
Spirituality is the individual journey, but that doesn't mean you won't have companions on the way.
Yes, but that's... you should put that on a bumper car sticker.
I think I might do that.
Yeah, we should start writing this stuff down. But it's so true. It really is so true. And sometimes it's the most unexpected people that accompany you on parts of your journey that you just never would have thought.
Right, the odd couple.
Yeah. Yeah, so much so. And, sometimes, even myself, I have preconceived ideas about what certain people might think or what their views are because of who they represent themselves to be. And you think, I just can't talk about these topics with them because they'll just, put me in a box and never open that door again.
Right. You're not going to talk, conspiracy and other stuff with a person that doesn't want to hear it. You're not going to talk spirituality to a person that's, strictly, religious, strictly one type of religion. And why? When you do engage into conversations, that is what I call pontificating philosophers. You aren't solving anything, and you're just exchanging energy with a person that's never actually listening to your point of view.
Yeah.
They may hear it in their mind, but none of it is actually processed. And therefore, it is a wasted conversation. And so many people that I see, and I know you see, are falling into that, where they're trying to save everyone. You can't save everyone. They have to be able to do it on their own.
And they have to want it.
Right. And then there are times that people are struggling for companions, and they are using this process of teaching everyone to get companions.
Yes, very much so. And, the same thing applies even with relationships. Sometimes, no matter what you do, person X is just not going to be that into you.
Exactly. Just not going to be into you.
Fabulous ABC that are, walking on by because you're too fixated on X.
Exactly.
That's difficult to explain to people.
Yeah, having that unlimited point of view versus somebody with a limited point of view.
Yes, that's a good way to summarize that.
Okay. When you're on that journey, you're looking for the unlimited point of view. And you may get that unlimited point of view for an hour, a day, or 1 second. But once you've got it, it is your own personal journey into the experience of being unlimited. And then afterwards, you process that unlimited experience. And many, many people want to share it with others. That's what the mystical experience is. And when you find that you can't share your mystical experiences, you simply must allow yourself to nourish yourself, because there may not be a person that can handle your experience because their process is not into that rites of passage.
Yeah. And to be able to understand that and what is
reflect upon it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Reflect upon it. Yeah.
Okay. What does reflecting upon mean to you?
To me, it's almost like a contemplation, like seeing it, acknowledging it, thinking about it, and how it affects everything around me or in my life. Not necessarily with a conclusion, but to give it that time of thought, I guess.
And that requires the little bit of the person that was the study man, the one that had to study during school, When you study your own reflections and you actually allow the patterns to be shown in your mind is where you can see the infinite habit patterns and the finite habit patterns. How your higher soul is trying to subtly point you into the direction of sovereignty, and where your internal parasympathetic is pointing you into the direction to continue to share the dirty energy underwear because you may not want to lose these companions who are still not exchanging mystical energies with you.
That naughty old habit that just keeps knocking on your door.
That's right.
Like, do not come in, habit.
Exactly. Do not come in.
No. I resist you.
Identifying the habit pattern and its action in your own mind. Witnessing yourself going away from what is the best option to you into sovereignty, and all of a sudden finding yourself eating that cookie you know you shouldn't eat.
How did it get in my hand?
Exactly. How did it get in my hand? It got in your hand because you've given so much power to the program of yourself. I call it the faux self.
That's a good one.
FAUX.
Oh, man.
It looks like you, talks like you, acts like you, but it's not really the I am you.
Yeah. It's the old habitual you.
Exactly. When companions get into arguments is where the classic programs come up.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's your victim tyrant process.
It's very difficult to step out of that, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's hard. You can only see it through reflection. In that moment where you go, wow, I'm getting angry and I can't stop myself. I'm exerting my will and I'm still getting angry. I still find myself talking out loud. I want to just blast this person, and the only thing I can do is yell out loud or say out loud in my house by myself all the things that I want to say, even though you never actually say it to them. That is another example of that habit pattern that's forcing entanglement.
Okay. I wondered, I've heard you mention forced entanglement before, and now that I understand it better.
It is a process of understanding where those programs create the habitual patterns that keep you exchanging energy because some part of your heart has a love with strings attached to it.
And I guess it's just that ingrained behavior as well,
Right.
The response.
That ingrained behavior. And when we begin to go to deal with ingrained behaviors is where we must make conscious application of the sacred, where a clear separation of the densities, where you put your fist down and say, no, you will not override my sovereign inherent will. I will not follow down the action of polarity and progress into anger, frustration, and hatred.
Yes. No, I will not.
Exactly.
I'm a sovereign being.
Okay? And then you give yourself that moment of self-nurturing where you forgive yourself and the programs you created for doing what they were created to do.
Oh, now that's asking a lot. Forgive myself.
Yeah. But that's the big healing of self-nurturing. That's the teaching of self-nurturing. Are you strong enough to forgive yourself and the programs you created at a time of innocence and misunderstanding of the world?
Yes, self-forgiveness is very difficult. I mean, we are our own worst enemy in that sense and our own worst critic.
Exactly.
Like, I couldn't tell you the amount of clients I've seen that's very, very difficult. It sounds so easy, but it's like asking someone to meditate for 20 minutes. It sounds easy, but it's not.
Especially if you don't regularly meditate.
Well, yeah.
That 20 minutes is totally different than whatever it is you do all day long. Whatever job it is that you do, you aren't meditating at the job. You actually have to still the body, still the mind, make sure the programs aren't running, go into the meditation process, be creative enough so that it makes an experience for yourself.
Yeah, and to understand, to still the mind, just that understanding of what that means. It took me a long time. I mean, I thought my mind was still, but no. It's quite impossible to do if you're not in a, let's say, quiet space or off in a corner on your own with absolutely no possible interruptions. You know, there's no way you can sit at your desk and think, oh, I'm not working, I'm just going to do a small meditation, because even your mind is alert for that phone call or your boss creeping up on you, or
something happened in the office that you have to respond to that's just outside your door or in the other cubicle.
Yeah. Or
even a sneeze that you're ingrained going to say bless you.
Yeah. To find that stillness is so hard. Even if you can just find it for 20 seconds, it's fabulous.
One of the phrases that I like people to say is, I grant myself the gift of quietness. I grant myself the gift of this moment of meditation. I unwrap this gift I am giving myself through self-nourishment and self-healing. I am feeling my ancient future spiritual self give me all the infinite forgiveness I can absorb, so I can go through the process of being an infinite forgiving being of the now.
Oh, I like it.
Consciously making those choices to give yourself gifts and accept them. One of the techniques I tell a lot of people that are going on want to be more of the advanced spiritualness is, your calendar in business is just as important as your calendar in spirituality. And giving yourself, 1, 2, and 3 months calendar schedule of spirituality where there are regular gifts that you give yourself. I am gifting you my I am presence of the future self, 25 minutes of meditation because I have put it upon my schedule and the children are gone that day. I am gifting you my ancient future self in 3 months from now, one day at the park where you can once again put your feet on the sweetness of the grass.
Oh, I like that. Gifting my future self.
That's right.
Excellent idea.
Okay. And then you get to do where you look back on your schedule and you see what you actually did and didn't do. And this is another form of very advanced journaling of the self. Because you can look back 6 months from now when you put your feet on the sweetness of the grass, and it was only 4 or 5 days later that you realized how wonderful it was. And that 9 months in the ancient future, you look back on it 5 or 6 times and know, I need my feet on the sweetness of the grass every day. Then you subtly change your habit patterns, and your ego and your negative programs are no longer working against you.
Because I am a sovereign being.
And in that sovereignty, the I am is the expression. All right, that is our break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Hold on, everyone.
Now we turn you to your host.
And welcome back, everyone, for the last segment in our technically first show. We are going to be having a continuing fun conversation. So Kathy, you wanted to ask me some questions now.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, how did you get into all of this? Like, what age do you think it was that you knew your abilities, and who was it that was the one that instigated it for you, or did you just come to that on your own?
I came to that conclusion probably by the time I was 11, that I was so vitally different than everyone else that I really had to find some form of spiritual teacher that never manifested. So it came to books. And the first major book that became my personal teacher was the Animal Medicine Cards by Jamie Sands and David Carsons. And they've been out since the late 1980s, I think. and my aunt had given it to me, and it was all about turtles and snakes and how they relate to Native American wisdom. And then I went out and bought her second book called The Sacred Path Cards, which is about concepts of teachings and understandings. And then I went and bought her rest of the set of books. And from that point, I understood that once I created my own system of understanding the teachings, that I would be doing exactly this, the rest of my life.
How did your family take this?
Well, I had a different family, a classic Greek immigrant family. I had two older brothers. I was born in 1974, so we went. The family changed. We owned restaurants, so many of us were always working. So I had an uncle that was a hippie in the 70s, so he brought a spirituality to an immigrant family that was only Greek Orthodox. So it existed, but only as that shimmer of hope. And both my brothers tried, and then they decided soccer or this was more important than that. And I didn't. I made the choice that I wanted to do that, and I would pick up books and read them at a very young age on acupuncture or acupressure, because they were lying around my house because they were lent to my older brother, who my uncle was trying to seed with new wisdom at that moment.
Oh. So that was lucky that he was trying to woo him with new information.
Yeah, especially the fact that it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
So, just trying to influence a child. And sometimes one book can radically influence a child. Just like the book that my aunt gave me. And it opened me up to a series of 6 other books that helped shape and guide me understanding what is truly sacred neutral. Can I love a being enough to be detached from detaching from them, where I'm not emotionless and I'm not attached in any way, shape, or form, and I'm a full being of love without any form of subtle judgment upon them? That is what gave me this unique skill that I worked very hard at to read the Akashic Records. Because you cannot actually connect to that frequency and process it into this out loud language without that as a clear, disciplined skill set.
You'd have to be very disciplined, I'd imagine.
Correct. And that disciplining is what I grew up in, where I did my work whenever I was 14, I worked every Friday and every Saturday. So I didn't go out. So when I wasn't working, I was at home and I wasn't, hanging out with my friends or doing stuff. I made sure I had those other hobbies that weren't just meditation. They were private ceremonies where I would go out, because I lived in an area where everyone had 3-acre lots and there were still big forests. So I could go 3 miles from my house and be in this giant rock gorge that no one would go into, and I could watch the river trout come up and be a part of that spawning energy.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right? Giving myself that gift every year to make sure I saw the fish spawn. Give myself that gift every year of going into the forest in the winter when the ice had taken it. Or this other river that I would go and I would hunt for crystals and rocks, because we lived in a glacial refuge area. So I would find gold and silver and crystals and all sorts of things, and I became an avid rock hound.
Wow. What is a glacial refuge area?
The Lake Erie, the Great Lakes were formed when a massive sheet of ice about 1.5 miles thick was over top of half of the United States. And as it retreated, it created a refuge area, stone that would come from great and the high north. That could be one form that would never be found in the south. So all the different forms of rock that had been crushed up was left in this zone.
Oh, I see. Wow.
I found jade, I found meteorites, I found everything under the sun you could imagine that was said never to be found in the United States was found there. And I wasn't the only person. That the whole northern Ohio is known for some of the unique stones that can come out of it.
So let me guess, your garage must be full of little gems and...
Yes, I have a huge collection. And then on top of that, when I wasn't doing that stuff, I had discovered that, Ohio was covered by sacred Native American mounds all over. And 5 miles from my house is the Seep Indian Mound, which is the largest mound in the Americas, 62 meters tall. And I would go to it and ride my bike on it when I was a kid. But when I became an adult, 16 years old, with a better knowledge of what I was doing with the sacred neutral, I went back to that place with a whole new perspective. And I began giving offerings to the ancestors there because I knew that that place was a nexus of energy. And somehow, as a young kid, I was drawn there to be innocent and playful there, in that it did something. And it was my ancient future self who saw this little innocent kid riding the bike on the sacred mound. Okay, that gave me the additional discipline to practice ancestral karmic resolution there.
Wow.
To become a medium for all of the things that were going on in that mind so I could give my perspective to it, which is all that it was asking. Assist unity by showing us your perspective.
Wow, it was all going on in Ohio.
It is its own unique place. Its own unique place.
Wow. So is it during this time that you first started with the fire ceremonies? Or
Yes.
Did this come to you, or?
Yeah, by age 11, I had started doing those regularly on my own.
Wow.
And having only a book that would teach me about what a sacred fire was. Wasn't until I was much older that I began to work with the Ojibwe Indians in northern Ashtabula and to help put together a ceremonial and a prayer ground and to be a part of that sweat group. And that is where the next evolution of me understood that what I had learned was going to come to a whole new level of testing. Because I would be around adults and I wouldn't want to be around tweens or young teens anymore because you were looking for peers and companions that could share a journey with you.
Yeah. Sort of that common knowledge as well, isn't it?
Correct. And then knowing who's the elder of our generation. Because the elder provides their perspective of time as they've experienced it.
Yeah, that most definitely is true.
Okay.
So a lot of American Indian experiences, like exposure to their customs and culture.
Yeah, at a young age, I think like as early as 5 or 6, instead of doing Cub Scouts, or I think I did Cub Scouts, and the other thing in that area was called Indian Guides, and it was sponsored by the Lions Clubs of Northern Ohio. And what they would do is go and teach you tracking, animal tracks, how to do canoes, how to make makeshift tents. You just learn to do a bunch of different things, how to make fire with a stick. All of those survival things that the kids would have a really big fun at it. And it was just really, really fun to do. So, yes, I was exposed to that for quite a few years at a young age. So I knew how to start a fire without matches. I knew how to carve my own canoe because I had done it twice with 5 other kids. It was our summer-long project as our little pod. And at the end of the summer, we all sailed our canoes on the Cuyahoga River, and only 2 sunk.
Goodness.
And the fathers and the mothers were there too. So you always had people that were pointing out if you're doing something right or wrong because they had taken that Lions Club training.
Ah, yes. Wow, that's coming from such an interesting place. What age were you when you did your first reading?
13 or 14.
Wow,
Probably right around 13 or 14. And then that was just to some of my local friends because I had been reading myself. I think I probably did my brothers and my mother and father, but they didn't get it. They didn't even want to hear it. But actually somebody that wanted to do was 14. By the time I was 17, I was doing them quite often, and it wasn't until I was 19 that I really started taking money for it.
Wow. It's good though, because at the beginning you just need to it's not getting confidence, but you just need to flex your psychic muscles, isn't it?
Right, and I also didn't want to use it to get dates.
Yeah.
That was the thing. That's where so many scenarios of my friends wanted me in the party scenario with that, because it would get the women around the table.
That's quite ingenious of them to try and do that.
Think of a 16-year-old mind, 17-year-old mind, exactly.
Yes. What will bring the chicks? Let's call Andrew.
Exactly. And then it got to the point where I would have to separate from my friends because they wanted me to do the trick dog thing. Oh, do this. Oh, this person has never had a reading. They're brand new to the party. I'm like, dude, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know. I mean, let's face it, even at our age now, we get it sometimes.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Just quickly, just so that you can show them
just
how good
5 minutes. There's no such thing as a 5-minute job. Not in this industry. There is no 5-minute answer for anyone.
And believe it or not, I'm not a trained animal.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's funny, people's perception of, appropriate and inappropriate sometimes is so different.
Yeah, especially around teenagers that are constantly horny.
Yeah. Well, I guess they'll pull anything, isn't it?
Right, and it was a disciplined challenge for me to not do that. A very disciplined challenge for me to not make that a part of my frequency, because I could see innately how fast polarity would take me over.
Yeah. I also found that one of the challenges I had, sometimes still have, is people wanting to know about someone else. And if you're saying, it's in a personal relationship, or you're asking how your brother is or his career or something like this, it's like, that's okay. But when you're saying, my ex-boyfriend is blah, 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 I want to know if he's, seeing someone else, or whatever inappropriate spying question it is, it's quite difficult to explain to people that you cannot eavesdrop on people that have not asked for it, and it's wrong.
Exactly. That makes you no longer the sacred neutral witness, and they're asking you to directly go into polarity.
Yeah. And, yeah, I'll probably get that, I would say, 1% of the time. And it ceases to amaze me. Like, really? This is your reading. You're paying good money for it. You want to talk about that?
Exactly. You want to talk about that.
Okay, now that we've said no, what else? Yeah, but I guess it's some people are just on that journey where they haven't granted themselves enough to just not be worried about things like that anymore. And that's always a challenge, to try and lead people away from that part of themselves. And I guess I don't mean without judgment, because there is no judgment, but in a way that they can find healthy and accepting that it's, as you said, letting go. I wish I had the revocations in those days, but I certainly will refer to them now.
Sometimes, I get asked very tough and very hard questions. This is just a reflection of many sessions that have gone on, where you get people that have had somebody that's passed on, and maybe it was through a violent act, and they want to know who it was that did it. Yeah. No matter what you say, there is no answer to that person, because whatever you give them is going to drive them deeper into polarity. And that is an absolute violation of your own sovereignty and the sovereignty of that being in unknowingness. We have every word, and we are responsible for every word we say.
Yes.
So when you are in this sacred neutral perspective, or when I'm in the sacred neutral perspective, being fully myself, fully empowered in the sovereignty, fully aware of my sympathetic and parasympathetic, interacting with my seen and unseen forces in this form of love without strings attached, I cannot attach a string to a single question.
Yes. I mean, it's very difficult, and this is definitely where discipline comes in. Because you have to be very aware of everything around you, and exactly as you say. Everything you say is powerful, and sometimes it's difficult to find the words. Not only are you searching for the words, but the right words for that particular person. Because what you say and your interpretation of what you say and what they hear and their interpretation of what they think they heard sometimes can be quite different.
Correct. And then as time goes by and the lack of journaling through frustration, people get Swiss cheese in their memories, where there's gaps, where they only remember the part that they want to remember. And then 7 months later, it's only that one little piece and the rest never existed.
Yes. Yes.
And for some others, that happens within days. No matter what they said, they are so angry, they're really only recording 2% of their experience in their memories.
Yeah, you're so right. And also to go back to your point about if there was someone who's passed on in a violent way, you really can't. I mean, of course, most of the time you can answer the question that they really are asking you, but it serves no purpose.
Right.
Because it won't make any difference to anything, whether they knew or didn't know. It will only be angst that they experience from that knowledge or lack of knowledge.
Right. So there are other times that, you run across people that have been abused as a child, and they know already. And it's how do you touch on that subject if you really want to help that person to heal? And that is the next subject I want to bring up. When you make yourself a choice to be the conscious application of the healer, and that's where both you and I got a new experience where we learned a hands-on healing technique that really dramatically changed us.
Yes. I mean, dramatically. And, hands-on healing is just a fantastic way for everyday life, for your everyday little remedy, plus your big issue. Because it's also an energy that you cannot really channel for a specific purpose. You can hope it goes certain places, but no matter what, they will be healing. But you can't necessarily manipulate it to what you want it to be.
Exactly.
And that's actually quite difficult. It's quite a difficult lesson to learn. And in many ways, it's a difficult one to accept, even over time, at times. If you have a completely, very, not completely, let's say a very, very sick person, extremely terminal, I guess it is extreme, but terminal case, and, there's all the want and need and love in you to want to heal them, not to, I guess, personally heal them, but to channel this healing energy and to help them get better or to make some progress. And if anything, it only brings them some comfort. It doesn't actually, it's not in their, I guess, in their future or in their moment to be completely healed. And to accept that you cannot help that and you cannot give them what you're hoping you can is very difficult.
Yeah, it is very difficult because there's that fine line of what is too much information.
Yeah.
Knowing that that one extra hair of information may force them into polarity in a set of choices.
Yeah.
Because it was just too much for them to retain at a moment where rage was more important to retain or frustration or jealousy was more important.
Yeah, and it's at the end of the day, there's free will, and on some level, it was their choice, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's hard. That's hard to just be on the sidelines and watch that.
When you come to a point where, for those that are out there, we have many, many listeners, the longtime listeners that are advanced healers and cranial sacral therapists, massage people. And over the next couple months, Kathy and I are going to be giving specific techniques and stuff to help those people that are in the energy worker, body worker industry. These are coping skills that you can use as the practitioner, as well as being able to teach to anyone that comes to you. And one of these things that I'd like to talk about is when you're going to heal someone, there's a common prayer you can say that connects you with the person. Okay? That common prayer is do no harm. Okay? That's your first set of messages. Bring in all of their angel bring-ins. Bring in all of their belief system beings that are holding the highest good without love, without strings attached to it. By making sure you do that, you are setting your intentions that whether as a massage therapist or as whatever it is that you are doing, you are helping these beings as being a facilitator of moving the energy that is stagnant within.
Yeah, definitely facilitator.
Okay.
That well.
Okay. What is a facilitator? Okay. That's the detour when a road is closed. Okay. The road to the self. And the facilitator says, here's the map, here's the detour. It may only be 12 miles, but at least it's a detour. Get over the frustration of not having the direct route. That's what a facilitator is. Making sure that the beings on the detour, which is healing into the self, don't get pulled into polarity once again.
When you say pulled into the polarity, what do you mean exactly there?
So let's say you have a person that's on the detour, and that's the person with the healer, and all of a sudden they start to have some form of experience where they may start to cry. Spontaneous crying happens on the massage tables. It happens in all sorts of scenarios. Assisting that person with the out loud voice of letting it go, giving the facilitation of peace and protection. So that the sacredness isn't violated from an energy that the person that's the facilitator might actually be massaging at that moment. Oftentimes we have wounds from past lives that are carried over to this life, and they form energy cysts. There are oftentimes that in Reiki or massage therapy, you run across a point that has a huge volume of fluid and energy behind it. And all you can do is just to move it around. And once you move it around, the lymphatic system takes over. And then part of you is working with the energy of the being to stimulate the lymphatic system so that that fluid can drain rapidly and not begin to cause blockages in other places. The body is the facilitator's chessboard into peace.
I like that.
Okay? Yeah. You're moving the fluids around, and you're taking the king or the queen of the parasympathetic, which is creating the pains and frustrations and creating the distractions.
I like the chessboard of the body. That's excellent.
All right, everyone, we are reaching that time. I think I hear the music in the background.
Woo!
Yep. All right, everyone, thanks a lot. It's been a really, really special show. I want to thank everyone that's been helping out. Kathy, we will be back next Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 to 4 Eastern time. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye.